The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual that night. Its rhythmic sound filled the emptiness of the house, echoing through the walls like a warning I couldn't understand yet. It was past midnight, and my wife still hadn't come home. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd said she was staying late at work. Again, deadlines, meetings, client dinners, the usual excuses. But that night felt different. The silence carried weight. Her phone, always glued to her hand, had gone unanswered for hours. I sat on the couch, the TV flickering aimlessly in the background, a cold cup of coffee resting untouched on the table. This had become a pattern. Once, twice a week, now almost every night. She'd returned past midnight, tired, distracted, and distant. The woman who used to laugh at my bad jokes, who'd fall asleep talking about our dreams, had become a stranger living under the same roof. I told myself not to overthink, but you can only ignore the signs for so long before the truth starts whispering in your ear. A week later, I decided to pick her up from work without telling her. A small surprise, I told myself. But somewhere deep down, I knew I was searching for something. Maybe reassurance, maybe closure. When I reached her office, the building was half dark. The front desk guard looked surprised. "Sir, everyone's gone home already." My heart skipped. "But my wife, she works in the marketing department." He shook his head. "They all left around 7. 7. It was now 10:30. I thanked him, forcing a smile, but my hands were trembling as I walked back to the car. I drove aimlessly through the city streets, headlights slicing through the darkness. That's when I saw her, standing outside a small cafe downtown, the one we used to visit in the early days of our marriage. Only she wasn't alone. A man stood with her. He leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh, that soft, shy laugh I hadn't heard in months. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. The air around me turned heavy. When she finally noticed me, her smile faded. For a brief moment, guilt flashed across her face. Then she turned away. I drove home in silence, every second of that scene replaying in my mind. When she walked in later that night, she looked surprised to see me awake. "You're still up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I stared at her for a long time before answering. "Yeah, long night, huh?" She hesitated, then nodded. Work ran late again. I wanted to ask why she lied. I wanted to tell her I'd seen her, but I couldn't. Not yet, because if I accused her now and she denied it, I'd have nothing. No proof. Just pain. So instead I smiled and said softly, "You should get some rest." She smiled back, a hollow, tired smile, and disappeared into the bedroom. I stayed on the couch, staring at the faint glow under our bedroom door until dawn. The following days were torture. She moved through the house like nothing had changed, humming songs while making breakfast, asking about my day, pretending to be the same person. But I couldn't forget that image, her laughter with him under the yellow cafe light. I started noticing more things. A faint scent of cologne on her scarf. New dresses she didn't tell me about. Messages she quickly deleted when I walked by. Each detail was a cut, small but deep. Still, I stayed quiet. I wanted the truth, not a story, not an excuse. One night, I decided to follow her. She said she had an office dinner, but her tone cracked midway through the sentence. I waited 15 minutes after she left, then took my car and followed at a distance. Her car stopped at a quiet part of town, not the office area. A small restaurant by the lake. Dim lights, soft music. I parked a little away and watched her walk inside. A few minutes later, the same man from before joined her. They sat close, laughing like they shared a secret world where I didn't exist. My chest tightened. I felt sick, dizzy, angry, and yet part of me still hoped there was an innocent reason. Maybe he was a co-worker. Maybe they were discussing work. Maybe I was losing my mind. But then I saw her reach across the table and touch his hand. And I knew something inside me broke that moment. Quietly, without sound. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Instead, I waited. I wanted to hear it from her lips, the truth she'd buried under her late nights and fake smiles. A few days later, I left work early and came home. She was in the shower, Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. There it was. A message. "Can't wait to see you tonight, Redheart." And a name. The same man. When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her phone. Her expression changed instantly. Fear, then shock, then silence. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. She froze. No words. Just the sound of dripping water from her hair onto the floor. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "Please." Her lips trembled. "It's not what you think." But her voice broke before she could finish. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside at the same street we'd once watched sunsets from, holding hands, promising forever. Now, all that remained was distance. That night, she packed a small bag and left for her sister's place. No arguments, no shouting, just silence. I sat alone in the dark, surrounded by the ghosts of laughter and love that once filled our home. But somewhere in that emptiness, a question kept echoing. Was it my fault? Had I become so lost in work, in routine, that I stopped seeing her? Or had she simply chosen someone else long before she started lying? Days turned into weeks after she left. The house felt emptier than ever, her laughter replaced by silence, her scent fading from the pillows, her slippers still sitting neatly by the door as if waiting for her to return. I told myself I'd move on. I tried, but every time I sat alone at the dinner table, I could still see her smile, the real one, not the one she wore when she was lying, the one that reached her eyes. And every time I tried to hate her, my heart betrayed me. Because you don't stop loving someone overnight, not even when they break you. One evening, as I was cleaning up, there was a knock at the door. It was her sister. She looked nervous, holding something close to her chest, a small box. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. She placed the box on the table and said softly, "She asked me to give you this if anything ever happened." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean, if anything ever happened?" Her sister hesitated. She didn't tell me much. "Just that you deserve to know the truth, one day." I opened the box slowly. Inside were letters, photos, and a small notebook with her handwriting. The first page began with my name. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep the truth from you any longer. My hands shook as I turned the page. "I know what you think, and I don't blame you. You saw me with him. You saw the lies. But before you hate me completely, I need you to know it wasn't an affair. It was a secret I didn't know how to share." I read on, each word cutting deeper than the last. "The man you saw wasn't a lover. His name is Dr. Iqbal. He's an oncologist. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, stage 3. I didn't tell you because I knew what it would do to you. You've always carried everyone's pain on your shoulders, and I couldn't bear to become another burden. So I told you I was working late. Every night you waited for me, I was either in chemotherapy or sitting in that cafe afterward, trying to pretend I was still normal. I met Dr. Iqbal outside of the hospital. He became more than a doctor, a friend who reminded me to smile, to stay strong. You saw laughter and thought betrayal. But it was relief that I could still feel human. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My chest ached, not with anger, but with guilt. Heavy, suffocating guilt. I know I should have told you. I saw how my lies were breaking you. But every time I tried, fear stopped me. Fear of seeing pity in your eyes. Fear of changing the way you looked at me. I just wanted us to have one last stretch of normal, even if it was built on lies. By the time I finished reading, my hands were trembling. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. She hadn't been cheating. She'd been fighting for her life, alone. I sank to the floor, clutching the notebook, whispering her name over and over until my voice cracked. I went to her sister's house that night. When she saw me, she froze. "She didn't want me to tell you," her sister said quietly. "But she's in the hospital now. The treatment stopped working." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Every traffic light felt like a punishment. Every second wasted felt like a sin. When I walked into her room, she was lying there, pale, fragile, but still wearing that faint, familiar smile. Her eyes opened slowly when she heard my voice. "You came," she whispered. I tried to speak, but no words came. I just took her hand, thinner, colder than I remembered, and held it tight. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I didn't want to see you in pain." I shook my head, my own tears falling freely now. "You should have trusted me to love you through it." She smiled faintly. "You always were the better one between us." We talked for hours, about the past, about the things we never said. She told me about her treatments, her fears, her nights staring at the ceiling wondering if she'd make it to the next morning. "I used to watch you sleep sometimes," she said, "and I'd whisper thank you for giving me the kind of love that made it so hard to say goodbye." I wanted to promise her she'd be fine, that we'd beat this, that we'd have our mornings and laughter again. But I couldn't lie anymore. So instead, I just whispered, "I'm here. I'm not leaving." She passed away 2 weeks later. Quietly, peacefully, her hand in mine. After the funeral, I sat in her favorite spot by the window, the morning light spilling across the empty chair beside me. On the table lay the notebook, her final gift. The last page had a single line written in her handwriting. "Don't let my secret destroy you. Let it remind you that love isn't about how long we have. It's about what we give while we're here." Months passed. The pain didn't fade, but it softened. Sometimes, late at night, I still find myself waiting for her to walk through the door, smiling, pretending work kept her late. But then I remember, her late nights weren't lies of betrayal. They were battles for survival. Now, whenever I drive past that little cafe, I don't feel anger anymore. Just a bittersweet ache and gratitude. Because even though she's gone, she left me something no secret could ever erase. Proof that love, even when hidden behind pain, is still love. It's been a year since she left. The calendar on the wall marks the seasons, but inside the house, time stands still. Her coffee mug still rests on the kitchen shelf, untouched. The curtains she loved still sway gently when the morning breeze drifts through. For months, I couldn't bring myself to change a thing. It felt like erasing her. But grief, I've learned, isn't something you move past. It's something you learn to walk with. Every morning I stop by the lake, the same one where I last saw her reflection in the cafe window. The water's still, peaceful, and for some reason, it's where I feel closest to her. I bring her notebook with me, the one filled with her handwriting, tiny, neat, alive. One morning, as I sat there reading again, I noticed something I had missed before, a folded piece of paper tucked between the last pages. It wasn't her usual stationery, just a small, wrinkled letter addressed to me. "If you ever find this," it began, "I want you to do one thing for me. Keep living. Don't spend your life waiting for the pain to fade. It never truly will. But you can turn it into something beautiful. Promise me that one day you'll smile again for real." I sat by the lake for hours, staring at those words. A promise. That's what she wanted, not perfection, not guilt, just life. For the first time since she left, I whispered into the wind, "I promise." That promise changed everything. I started volunteering at the hospital where she had her treatments. At first, I could barely walk the corridors without feeling like my chest might collapse. The smell of antiseptic, the sound of distant monitors, it all brought her back in waves. But then I met others who carried the same quiet grief, the same fear. And I realized something. Love doesn't die with the person. It transforms. It becomes a reason you keep going. There was one girl in particular, Mina. She couldn't have been older than 25. She was sitting alone in the waiting area, trembling, clutching her treatment papers. When I sat beside her, she looked up, eyes wide with fear. "Does it ever stop hurting?" she asked. I smiled softly. "The fear or the pain?" "Both," she whispered. I thought of my wife, of her laughter in that cafe, of her shaking hands hiding the truth. "No," I said quietly, "but you learn to make peace with it, and that makes you stronger than you can imagine." She smiled through her tears. In that moment, I understood what my wife meant by something beautiful. Months passed. I started a small support group at the hospital. People like Mina, People like me. Every Friday evening, we gathered in a quiet room, shared stories, fears, memories. We called it the Late Nights Club because we all had our late nights, hours spent wondering, grieving, hoping. And somehow, together, we learned to breathe again. One evening, Mina brought a small music box to the meeting. "It's for you," she said. "You helped me see life again." When I opened it, the tune that played was hauntingly familiar. It was the same melody my wife used to hum while cooking. I froze, my throat tightening. "How did you—" She smiled. "Your wife told me about it." I stared, confused. "I met her," Mina said softly, "months before she passed. She helped me when I was first diagnosed. She told me if I ever met you, to remind you of this song, and to tell you she already knew you'd keep her promise." I couldn't hold back my tears. The room blurred as that melody filled the air, wrapping around me like a memory reborn. She had planned even this. Even in her final months, she was thinking of others, of me. That night, I returned to the lake. The stars were scattered across the water, and the city lights flickered in the distance. I played the music box and whispered, "You kept your promise first, didn't you? You kept living through all of us." The wind rustled gently through the trees, and for a moment, I swear I felt her presence beside me, warm, quiet, forgiving. Now, every year on the anniversary of her passing, we gathered by the lake, the members of the Late Nights Club. We light candles, share stories, and read a passage from her notebook. This year, Mina read aloud, "Don't wait for the pain to leave before you start living. Start living, and the pain will learn to live with you." We stood there in silence, each of us holding a candle, our reflections trembling on the water, and I realized that her late nights hadn't been secrets. They had been lessons, quiet, powerful lessons about love, fear, and courage. After the ceremony, Mina handed me a small sealed envelope. "She wrote this for you," she said. It was in the hospital's memory box. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photo of us, smiling at the cafe on our first anniversary. On the back, she had written, "One day, when you fall in love again, don't feel guilty. I'll be happy knowing you found the light after the dark." I looked up at the stars and smiled for the first time without pain, because love, real love, doesn't end. It just changes form, sometimes into a song, sometimes into a promise, and sometimes into a new beginning. I whispered her name one last time and let the wind carry it away. And as the candles flickered on the lake, I finally understood her late nights weren't about secrets. They were about preparing me to live without her.